Hi, this is Kyle Mitchell, host of Passive Income Through Multifamily Real Estate, and you are tuned into Dream Chasers, interviews with the future.
Societies have been guided and governed by fear forever. This is sort of the number one method of controlling populations. Now, with the social media you have just mentioned and the technology, the methods have become a lot more sophisticated, and that is why, unfortunately, this invisible enemy has been invented so that we are all in the future controlled through a digital identity that will monitor our movement around the world everywhere, every time. And the main purpose of that is 100% taxation, control, slavery.
And now, a word from our sponsor, High Rise Capital. High Rise Capital is a boutique commercial real estate investment firm that helps high-income professionals, high-net-worth individuals, and family offices obtain above-average returns with reduced volatility and tax efficiency from high-quality commercial real estate investments. High Rise Capital helps clients achieve meaningful investment returns, generate multiple streams of income, and participate in investments that enhance lives and provide a tangible societal benefit. To learn more about High Rise Capital, please visit their website and download their free ebook, More Doors, More Profits, both of which you can find in the show notes. Thank you.
This is Dream Chasers, episode 158 with Dr. Dangerzone.
Hey guys, hi Grandma. This is Adam Carswell, and welcome to Dream Chasers, interviews with the future. On Dream Chasers, we bring next level talent to the light. Thank you for tuning in. Now let's get straight to the interview. Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Hello and welcome to Dream Chasers, interviews with the future. On Dream Chasers, we bring next level talent to the light, and we're definitely doing even more than that here today. I have Dr. Dangerzone, Kolja Spori, but we're going to refer to him as Dr. Dangerzone today, here joining us for episode 158. A little bit of context here for you before we dive in and start to learn more about Dr. Dangerzone. Him and I got connected through our mutual friends and colleagues over at Liberland, which I believe Liberland is probably the most free country in the world right now. And it's no surprise to me that that's how Kolja and I met. I've had him on the Liberland show, which is another show that I host. And quick fun fact before we start diving into his story, we'll lead with this. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Dangerzone, Kolja has been to every single country in the world. Let me say that again. He has been to every single country in the world. Only person I know who's done that. And so we're going to learn a lot today about this world that we're living in now, in the invisible enemy, and how we can always remain one step ahead, protect ourselves, protect our freedom, protect our liberty, and live the best life possible. So Kolja, Dr. Dangerzone, I'm so grateful to have you, first of all, as a friend. I'm looking forward to catching up with you right now. And then also just learning from you. You've got so much insight from our previous experience, and I'm ready to hear it. So I'll pass the mic to you. You have, I guess, could you kind of share a little bit about yourself and your story and your journey before we dig in?
Yes, hello, Adam. Great to see you again. As you said, we are fellow Liberlanders, and I've also been following your program, and I'm proud to be a guest after previous guests like Doug Casey, Jeff Berwick, Edward Griffin, who I am a big fan of. So I'm glad that I can follow in their big footsteps today.
Yeah, those are some big names. So again, to reiterate, I mean, we love Doug Casey over here. If it wasn't for some individuals like Jeff Berwick, Kolja, I would have never met you because I didn't know about Liberland until he came around. And I think you dropped another cool name in there, G. Edward Griffin, the Mr. Red Pill himself, one of the true individuals paving the way for modern day freedom. Man, I look up to all four of you guys. I put you right up there with them. And I don't think any of them have been to every single country in the world. So you've got something on them here, Dr. Dangerzone.
Yes, what I did over the last 10 years was mainly traveling in order to achieve my dream. I was chasing the dream of traveling to every country in the world. There's actually a scene out there of people who do this. About 200 people in the history of the world have been to every country. There have been 500 in space. Space is defined as the Kármán line, 100 kilometers above Earth. So it is a small club, but it's getting bigger. Or let's say the club of people who travel to every country in the world was getting bigger until the invisible enemy struck last year.
And speaking of that club, because we have spoken and talked about this before, I need to put it on my own radar again, because it sounds like a very exciting group of people to be surrounded by. And yeah, I just kind of want to put it on my goals and bucket list. Would love to join it one day. So what's the name of the club and what does that process look like?
I have created an annual meeting of the Extreme Traveler International Congress, where mostly people meet who have been to every country in the world. But the qualifying criteria is actually to have traveled to 100 countries. So if you've done that, Adam,
I've got about 90.
we will not be so strict with the 100.
So I got
Perfect.
about 90.
I've
got 90
to our next meeting.
Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay. Go ahead.
Nevertheless, you're invited. Jeff Berwick has been to, I think, almost every country. Doug Casey has been to, I think, 150. So I have got this get together every year, and these people, they travel a lot, even nowadays, while we are under all those restrictions. It's not easy. I can talk more about that later. But there is a special knowledge pool around the people we've just mentioned and about around the Liberlanders. This sort of understanding how the world works does not come from travel per se. I have found the circles of Austrian school economists and of libertarians or anarcho-capitalists or even agorists the most fruitful for conversations, how this world really works.
Right. Okay. So you just dropped so many teasers right there. The first one I want to zone in on is following up basically on what you just said, which is there's something distinctive and different about this knowledge group, because you can meet people who've kind of traveled and been around the world. But it sounds like this group is not only unified through having that experience of going around and seeing different places. Sounds like everyone kind of thinks in a similar manner, which echoes probably what you stand for and what I stand for as well. So in your opinion, what is different about the knowledge within this group compared to maybe another travel group?
There's many people who travel or who travel a lot, or even who have been to every country, who still see the world the way they have been programmed through television at home. That means they will go to so-called rogue states like Iran or North Korea or Syria, and they will judge it by the perceptions that have been programmed at home. Television programming is very strong. And for me, the decisive difference is, are people watching television or not? You can nowadays even see outside on the street immediately if a person is a TV watcher or not, because the TV watchers, they wear sort of a diaper in their faces.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. And we've seen that firsthand now over the past year, just how much fear has been struck into the world. And it's definitely moved beyond just watching television too. I'm sure you can agree. These phones, Facebook, Instagram, any mainstream social media, we get confused because I think a lot of people like to use the phrase mainstream media as well, and they don't realize that all those social media platforms I just mentioned are also mainstream media. They're also consistently and constantly pushing out an agenda to keep you thinking a certain way. And so I really would like to know from a safety perspective and a travel perspective, and just, I follow you on Twitter, which actually, by the way, what's your Twitter name again? Can we get that out there so people can follow you?
It's at Spori Sport, just I think like my handle here on the Zoom conference.
Yeah, you can see it there. Spori Sport, guys, go follow him on Twitter. You see the world through a different lens, and I admire it greatly. And I wish more people would see it the way you do. So let's focus on travel, because that's really something I'm just curious about. Is I have been living in Canada for the past year or so, and I'm sure you've seen some of the ridiculous things going on here as far as going in and out of this country. What's the ray of hope here? What's the positive way that someone who, wants to travel and not have somebody breathing down their neck, like, how do you go about doing it?
First of all, I have little hope for people in the United States or Canada or the other Five Eyes countries. They're sort of at the center of the global attack we're experiencing at the moment. You just mentioned fear. Societies have been guided and governed by fear forever. This is sort of the number one method of controlling populations. Now, with the social media you have just mentioned and the technology, the methods have become a lot more sophisticated, and that is why, unfortunately, this invisible enemy has been invented, so that we are all in the future controlled through a digital identity that will monitor our movement around the world, everywhere, every time. And the main purpose of that is 100% taxation, control, slavery. That's been around for a long time, but there were many loopholes for people like yourself, myself, I think many of the people who watch this program. But the loopholes are closing, and it's getting very, very difficult in the future. Nevertheless, I was recently talking with Doug Casey, and I sort of did not give much hope for the future. Indeed, I think if this takeover, which we can call a Bolshevik communist takeover or a fascist takeover, I call them the Green Khmer, because they will use nature and climate change, what they call it, in order to control people, all the people in the world, and lower our standard of living and make our lives miserable, like the Red Khmer in Cambodia in the 1970s. So this is what I see in the future, but let's say with a bit of luck, we still have a couple of years left where we can roam freely, relatively freely around the world. I am just back from a very, very difficult and dangerous place. Last week, I was in Donbass, in the war zone in eastern Ukraine. And it was despite I've been to every war zone in the world over the last 10, 15 years, it was the first time I was actually inside an active trench system where there was mortar shots from the other side. The West is shooting towards the east with mortar and machine guns. And that was a moment where I was afraid for sure.
Wow. And that leads me to my next question, which is, you are Dr. Dangerzone, not just because it sounds cool, but because of actual real world experience. You've been to a lot of danger zones. We really haven't highlighted that yet. We've talked about the different countries you've been to, but you've intentionally gone to places that people say, hey, Kolja, don't go here. So tell us about, what have you learned from that? And yeah, just what are your key takeaways from being in environments like that? And tell us about maybe some different places around the world you'll never forget, those danger zones.
First of all, the fear that we learn on television is not correct. Even in so-called dangerous places, you can usually move quite freely, whereas at home, you might encounter dangers. Like the United States, for me, has always been a relatively dangerous place, not only because of private dangerous people, but especially because it's a police state and the system is very dangerous and has been for a long time. So I've been to Benghazi in May 2011, I believe. That was when the Battle of Benghazi was just at the front line, was just in town. I came in from Egypt. I was in Grozny, Chechnya, when it was still considered dangerous, I think 2009, 2010. I've been to Baghdad. I've been to Mogadishu, which is the most dangerous capital city in the world. I've been 3 times now to the Donbass already, 2015, 2018, 2021. This is a decisive area of world history and geopolitics at the moment, because it is sort of the overarching power struggle where the powers to be are actually controlling the world by separating Germany from Russia. This is a key element. It's called the Heartland Doctrine by Halford Mackinder, a British guy from 1906 is when he wrote that. I've been to many other dangerous places, including natural dangers like the North Pole. I ran a marathon that is organized by an Irish guy, Richard Donovan. Great event. I've been to Antarctica with him, to a place called Neuschwabenland. And I've been on the coldest road in the world at minus 62 degrees centigrade Celsius. That's very cold, actually.
Minus, how much? What was it? Minus what?
Minus 62 degrees centigrade. Wow. That is, I think the record for inhabited spaces was minus 71 degrees centigrade. So I've been to the northernmost road end in Siberia, which is more north than Tuktoyaktuk in Canada or the Nordkapp in Norway. So this is a bit of my travel background. So Dr. Danger Zone means I know a little bit about dangerous situations, dangerous places, the difference between propaganda and real danger. And at the moment, the invisible enemy is mostly propaganda.
Yes, I agree. I hope we might have a little bit of an echo chamber going on here today's interview, but this is like why, because you're saying so many things that are always running through my head. And you know what, like it can get lonely sometimes. So again, I'm just grateful to have you on here, Kolja, and sharing your take from someone I would consider very experienced. And again, you're naming all these different places. It's just like, wow. So I also was just wondering, like, have you been to Venezuela or Somalia during those times of turmoil?
I was in Venezuela in 1989 when I was about 19 years old. And it was already dangerous and difficult at the time, although it was not full-blown socialism or communism yet. Venezuela is one of those examples we use in the libertarian world to describe a failed state because of the failed policy of socialism, which is certainly true to a large extent, but the whole American continent is screwed up from top to bottom because of colonialism, and especially on the southern continent. This is a struggle between the real indigenous people and the colonizers or the modern occupiers, the European peoples. It's not so much visible in the US because the indigenous people have been pushed back even a lot more, but it's the same phenomena per se. So yes, Venezuela is a difficult place, a tough place, but super beautiful, super friendly people, beautiful women. Somalia is different. That is a lot more dangerous visibly. You can feel it when you're in the streets. You can't move around as a Westerner without real heavy protection. So you will really be moving like in one of those films with 6 guys with Kalashnikovs sitting on the back of a Toyota pickup, and you probably have a bulletproof car, and you will definitely sleep in a hotel that has been blown up before. Every hotel has been blown up before. So you can look at the photos, which half of it was gone at some point, and you just hope while you're sleeping there that nothing's going to happen. Mogadishu is not so difficult to travel to, but it is certainly a little bit nerve-wracking.
I knew that. I knew Mogadishu. Is it the capital?
Yes, it's the capital of Somalia proper. There's 2 other bigger parts of this sort of divided country. One is Somaliland, where the capital is Hargeisa, which is easy to travel to and pretty safe. And then there's Puntland in the north, where all the pirates used to be or still are, and the capital is Bosaso. It's a port town. I've been there, also again with heavy protection. This is maybe the most difficult part of Somalia to get to, the pirate area, Puntland.
Wow. Okay. So one thing that we've discussed here so far is loopholes, travel loopholes. Could you elaborate what you mean by that? Because I know, again, granted the state of the world right now, I'll just put it this way. I am going to hold out as long as possible before getting any of these, new passports that they're talking about. How do I maintain my liberty in travel, or how do we?
In the past, the system was basically a combination of fiat money, Federal Reserve money, combined with taxation. And one could flee from taxation by moving to favorable domiciles and having legal constructions. And many people have done that, especially entrepreneurs who were free to move around, or perpetual travelers. This is a recent phenomenon and gave freedom to many people, and especially in our Liberland scene, which in itself is sort of a loophole among countries. It is very popular to be such a sovereign individual and live outside the fence. But the system wants to get us back into the fence, and so they have created this invisible enemy as a Hegelian dialectic. That means they create a problem and offer a solution to people who want to be.
Can you restate what you call that? Because I've heard that theory before, and I want to make sure we get it in the comments here on Facebook.
It's the Hegelian dialectic. Hegel was a German guy, a philosopher, and the dialectic, that actually means two tongues. It's actually defining the world as it is very much. It's a divide and rule situation where the powers to be always divide people into two sides, and they create a problem like fear of terror, fear of climate change, fear of this virus, the so-called invisible enemy. And then they offer to all those people who are on the fearful side of the division a solution that is protection by the strong state. The state, the government at all time tries to promote its existence, its raison d'etre, its reason for being, by creating a hypothesis of hope for the mass of the people, and people who don't understand it will ask for government help to protect them from terrorism, from the virus, from climate change, and so on. This is a Hegelian dialectic. One can also call it a satanic dialectic. That sounds a bit stronger, but it's actually the same thing. Satan just means the divider, like diabolo, dividing into two. And the powers to be that control us nowadays, they are satanic. They divide and rule the people. So that was a little background on.
No, thank you. I never realized that was the root of because you always hear it just, for example, like satanic or Satanism, Satan, like, it's a bad thing. It's a really, hey, we got him doggy. But now I have a better understanding of what it really is.
Yes. The COVID 1984 regime is a Hegelian dialectic. And loopholes. At the moment, there are still some loopholes for travelers. Like in my circle, people travel a lot. I think there's about 90 countries in the world where you can still enter without extreme restrictions. Extreme restrictions would be, for me, like a 2-week quarantine, sometimes in prisons. Like in Australia, it's a prison-like situation when you arrive there. Another extreme restriction is PCR tests through the back door. Like it's tough enough in the mouth and in the nose, but in China they do it in a more delicate part of the body. So I think
I've heard of that. I didn't know that was real.
I think that story went even in mainstream media in the US, where this delegation was actually tested for COVID. That made me laugh, but I wouldn't want to be in the same situation. And the system is coercing us into compliance, into obeying the rules, but you can still stretch the rules a lot at the moment. But the next step is for sure going to be this, what in the EU is called the Green Pass, which is a digital passport on the mobile phone. So you can still travel as long as you're vaccinated, which is of course not a vaccine, but that's another long story.
Right.
And then after this, we will find a situation where even the smartphone as the digital pass will not be enough anymore for the powers to be. It will definitely be a combination of the human body with his digital identity and his his way of showing his identity to the outside, to the powers to be, or checking in an airplane and so on. This is technologically now possible, and it is all described in Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset. It's really a mandatory reading because it's like Mao's Red Bible, where every step of the program of the COVID-19 84 regime can be read. Yeah. Okay, the loopholes are there.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm wondering is the loopholes. Like, I want to even use yourself as an example because you definitely strike, again, someone similar to me where it's like, I have zero desire to do this. So, is there any hope for us, or are we just going to have to go with it?
I have no hope in the mid or long term, because I think the dumbed down masses will accept anything nowadays. They are TV program zombies, and they are the large majority everywhere. So I'm a pessimist in the mid and long term. In the short term, traveling now is possible. You need good nerves. To give you an example, I just traveled to the Donbass. That meant I had to go to Russia first. There's only 10 countries at the moment that can travel to Russia because of the COVID regulations that just changed. So once it opened for Germans, I got my tourist visa to travel to Russia. Lufthansa didn't want to take me on board the flight because they didn't know about the regulations yet. So I had to argue and finally made it on board, arrived in Russia. Next problem, getting into the Donbass region, you have to go from Russia. It's closed from Ukraine. The Ukrainians are not allowing anybody to travel into this eastern part of their country. So Eastern Ukraine, it's unfortunately a bit of a Soviet communist system now. Nevertheless, they are the victims. They are also using a strong COVID regime. You need paperwork, etc. I didn't have it. I talked my way in because I have been to Russia so often. I have a good standing with their secret services, I guess. So after half an hour talking, they knew I was a bona fide traveler and also fighting for their cause. I was in the country. Then you're stuck in a really sort of war zone, dangerous place. On the second night, I felt a bit high temperature at night. And I thought, man, if I'm going to have a fever while exiting the Donbass, because they have those fever thermometers at every border, if they send me back, I'm going to be stuck in the Donbass for 2 weeks in quarantine, maybe get really sick. This is something that makes you nervous. So you need a lot of guts to travel these days. So I got out again into Russia, and then to board the flight back home, you need another PCR test. I went to St. Petersburg airport to get a test for my departure the next day, and it wasn't ready. Can you imagine? So I had no PCR test, and I got on board the Aeroflot flight because the Russians are way cooler without the PCR test. And then the more difficult part was getting back into Germany without a PCR test.
Oh, sure.
Germans are very much looking at all the rules and the paperwork. And I couldn't imagine myself with a bit of talking, quite a bit of talking, like saying, oh, I've had the test, otherwise I wouldn't be on board. I've got the stamp, but I've lost the paper on the flight. I don't have it with me. They let me in as well. So what I'm saying is, you can go through the loophole, but it'll hurt a bit. It's tight and narrow, and you'll get some bruises, and you need good nerves. But do travel now. Maybe it's going to be impossible pretty soon.
You know, I don't like to hear that, but I can't argue with you. So, I guess throughout your experience traveling recently, what has been your key to staying healthy? I know people that have, gotten the illness and recovered. Actually, anyone I know that's gotten it is completely back to normal now. I haven't been exposed to it as far as I know, and I know I have a good immune system, but like for you, I'm sure you're keeping healthy and you have ways that you're remaining invincible, so to speak. What's your advice?
First of all, statistically, this is just a flu. The flu has always killed people, and it could be tough. I mean, we've all had the flu strong a week, and you don't want to have it in a strong version. I think in general, being fit and getting a lot of fresh air, being outside in the sun, being social and happy with people. This is all they are actually forbidding us to do with social distancing and mask wearing and so on. So you can already see the system wants to make us sick and doesn't want to keep us healthy. But then really, if you do not feel well, if you feel like you've been affected, I think the rule number one is zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D. So I usually eat some of this or use tablets for that. And I'm not a person who denies the existence of this coronavirus. I'm pretty sure. But nevertheless, this is all speculation. But when I went on a long boat trip recently, on a yacht trip to Clipperton Island, I took along hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin as a possible medication if I or somebody else on the yacht gets a strong flu. So I'm always hedging my chances. I'm always getting the best information possible. And as a danger zone person, one has to operate like this. And nevertheless, I know nobody in my larger circles of friends who has even had this flu. One of our extreme travelers at a very old age has actually died from it, a Turkish gentleman who I had met once. That is unfortunate. But statistically, for a person like me who goes to war zones, this is not an important calculation factor, this current flu, coronavirus.
Yeah. And so, as you mentioned right there, the best information is key. And I think that's where we're going to find sovereignty and liberty is staying tapped into what information is available, because I think as we're seeing, as you're talking about, you can't really stay stagnant in one place and think everything's always going to be the same forever. I mean, we just saw how quickly things can change. So I still want to keep zoning in on this one. And then I also want to figure out your recommendations on like the best places to live right now. But for the first thing I just want to get clear is do you really feel as though like it's inevitable, like you're going to have to get this this shot, or everyone else is going to have to get it? Is that what you see happening moving forward, or is there a way to hold out?
For quite a while, you just need the stamp, not the shot. I will never get the shot, the jab.
The jab, yeah.
That might mean to live differently, to live sort of reclusive in the countryside, in an autarky situation. At some point, maybe that's what they are trying to coerce us into. I hope they don't succeed totally. So this, in my opinion, will be the same in every country in the world, because out of the 193 United Nations members, and even the 13 non-United Nations that are quite autonomous countries, it is everywhere the same. The very few exceptions were Tanzania, where the president Magufuli got killed when he had a sort of free anti-COVID-19 84 regime. The other country is still Belarus, where President Lukashenko was offered a bribe, and then even a big bribe. And when it declined, he got a color revolution that he is still defending against. And he even had a kill team sent to him. People know this in Eastern Europe, but it's not in our media. So there is no real loopholes out there, but some countries will be better than others, like those countries that were always a bit less stringent, with people that are a bit more relaxed, and where the system is not that strong. We all know countries like that. That is a loophole for a while, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where you're coming to us from Monaco right now, correct?
I'm in Monaco di Baviera, which is a little further north. I think Monaco is a very good country to live in general, but the future of this system that we're just talking about will certainly be the same in all those sort of big classical civilized countries. Loopholes could be one of those 13 autonomous countries that are not members of the United Nations, like Abkhazia at the Black Sea. Sukhumi is the capital of that. That is a pretty cool place, weather-wise and people-wise, and you're out of the system. Tougher places would be Western Sahara, which is really off the charts, but you need to be strong to live there, but probably you will be there without control in the desert somewhere. I think some islands will take it cooler than others in the Pacific, especially if you're on an outer island that is not really the centerpiece of that island republic. I know that some people are in Saipan quite happily from our scene. So these are, at the moment, some examples where one can live a little better. In the background, you hear my dog Snoopy. This is the biggest advice I have for anybody. Get in touch with nature, love animals, especially a dog. Anatole France, who is a big philosopher, said, if you haven't loved an animal, your soul has not been truly awakened. And I find this very true.
How many countries has Snoopy been to?
That's a nice question. He's from Hungary. It's a Hungarian hunting dog. He drove through Austria to get to Germany. So he has been to 3 countries, and I'm unhappy that he has not even seen the sea. I would love him to bite into the waves in the ocean, but Snoopy doesn't like traveling.
Oh, okay. So he normally stays put there in Monaco?
Yes.
De Baviera? Is that right? Did I say it right?
Yes, that's Munich in Germany, where my longtime partner lives, my wife. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I had to ask that because I've got a little puppy running around here too, Luca. She's German. She's a Dachshund mixed with mini poodle. But yeah, we have travels on our horizon, and I want to bring Luca around with us. But I just wonder what it's like being an extreme traveler with your animal. What your best plan of practice is.
Can you take your dog on board?
I mean, she's definitely less than 15 pounds. So, or I'm not sure what that is in kilograms.
Perfect. That's a good solution to travel with your loved dog. Snoopy is too big, so he always has to stay home.
All right. So let me see what else I got here. Man, I'm taking so many notes. Oh yeah. So this is one thing. I'm not sure how far down this rabbit hole we can go, but it's something you and I know we've discussed in the past is, I mean, coming with all of this experience around the world, you get to meet some very unique people, probably some pretty influential and powerful people. And when I say that, I mean, individuals of power that the rest of the world isn't even aware of type of power. I don't know which direction to go with this because I know you probably can't drop a whole lot of names, but in your opinion, like, let's put it this way, who is really running things right now? Because I think we're under a mirage that, oh, this country is running things, this country is doing that, but it's not the country, it's people, you could say like, puppeteer type of stuff. So what's really going on here?
Okay, to answer the last question first, if you want to know who is in power, ask yourself who you must not criticize. That's what Voltaire said. So I'm not going to say more about that. I was always driven by meeting interesting people, and I have a talent for it. And I think everybody can turn on his own magnet. I think people who are motivated to make a lot of money, they will make it, because if you really want something and you basically speak to the universe will give it to you. And for me, this motivation was meeting interesting people, powerful people. My first job, I was a head of VIP relations and sports marketing for Hugo Boss. That allowed me to meet sort of the most famous people in the world from sports and Hollywoods and business and so on. Later, I worked for almost 20 years in Formula One. And again, that was like a World Economic Forum every 2 weeks, CEOs, etc. At that time, I didn't know that World Economic Forum is a bad thing. I thought they were actually interesting. So for a long time, I was driven by meeting powerful people to understand the system. Now, something strange happened to me in the last maybe 1 year or not much more, I found out that the people who have not studied some social justice studies, some what we call in German Geschwätzwissenschaften, it means like bullshit sciences. I've studied
indoctrination.
I'm an economist. Yeah. So sociologists, all these people who basically are going to be taxi drivers one day, but very normal people, hardworking people, they understand much better what's happening at the moment with this COVID-19 84 regime. It's this middle class, upper middle class strata that aspires to social climbing, etc. They have not understood what's going on. And so a lot of the powerful people I've met before, or famous people, they are actually stuck in the system and they don't have much of a clue. But I've met leaders, thought leaders, and sometimes especially intelligence, military intelligence people who did open my eyes in one way or the other. So I was fortunate to meet some warlords and like Prince Johnson in Liberia. He cut his predecessor's ears off, Samuel Doe, on television, on CNN. I remember seeing that as a kid. So I met this Prince Johnson in Liberia at the inauguration of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, quite a frightening guy. I met and I've even become friends with the Kadyrov family in Chechnya, a very interesting place that I like a lot. A former warlord who is now a good participant in the Russian system, a good guy. I've met a very infamous warlord by the name of Donald Rumsfeld. I've said this in other places before. I've met Donald Rumsfeld in the elevator in a hotel in Batumi, Ajaria, Georgia, at the Black Sea. Then I've met, actually I've met the real M from James Bond, you know, the woman that leads MI5, MI6 intelligence.
Yeah.
She exists in reality and looks exactly like Judi Dench in the movie. So Judi Dench was selected because of the original M. So I've met her, and last year I've met the whole leadership of the FARC rebels in Colombia. That was quite interesting. We trekked into their mountain republic of Marquetalia together as the first foreign visitors in 60 years. So I've met a couple of heads of state, like I've had dinner with Gorbachev privately and with Helmut Kohl, our chancellor, Albert of Monaco. This is name dropping now, but what I want to tell other people is you have to go outside and meet people and see reality with your own eyes. It's possible. And then you can make a much better judgment about what's going on. Not be an NPC, a non-player character. Everybody can be a player. You just have to go out yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So thank you, because that establishes, in my opinion, like the credibility that we're going for here, to maybe go a little bit deeper if you can. And, you know, I know we talked about this before offline, but it's like, and I think that's why I'm drawn to you. I feel like what you just explained of yourself as younger, wanting to just meet all these people, just under like a truth seeker. I'm a truth seeker. And like, who is, in your opinion, who is running this world? You said those that you can't criticize, and I completely agree with that on many levels. But do you really see all these lines in the sand as all different places running their own business? Or is there a Wizard of Oz that we're missing here?
There's a parasitic group and a hyperparasite on top of it, which is a cult. It's a satanic cult, and it's been going on visibly for about 230 years, probably before that, but since then you can find it in history books and put things together, but you have to have good sources, because these sort of books are not easy to find. They're censored and banned, but I met a person who actually put a podcast out that was called The Cult That Hijacked the World, and it is pretty spot on, but I will not say more because I feel this is dangerous. Yeah, everybody has to do their own research. It's pretty obvious, in my opinion, but it's not allowed to be spelled out.
Right. We're kind of going into the danger zone right here just by talking about it. And I'm getting excited. My adrenaline's going a little bit. So thank you. I know we're not in a war zone right now, but I really appreciate this. So where would you like to, I guess, let our audience and our listeners know, like, what are, in your opinion, some of the best places for trustworthy information right now?
The internet at the moment is still a good source of information, and it's a time window that is probably closing at some point, either through more heavy censorship or through the social credit score system that will basically kill the existence of people who are sort of consuming the wrong books and websites on the internet. That's going to come for sure. But if people feel it's there's too much disinformation on the internet, which is true, there's a lot of it, then they can go into physical books that have been written 20 years ago, 80 years ago, 100 years ago, even 200 years ago. And there's one stringent narrative there that cannot have been manipulated sort of by trolls that sit in GCHQ in the UK or somewhere in Virginia all day long, putting the wrong program.
I actually, when I was back in my my days of punching the clock, I provided paint. I worked for a paint company that painted the parking lot of that place in Virginia you're talking about right now. I can't, yeah, I know. I helped him out. I shouldn't have done it.
You know, life is not a straight route forward. I got an award as a student for my thesis, which was a comparison of the policies of Russia and China at the time, from central planned economies to market economies. And that prize was from an organization that I hadn't heard of before, but I gladly accepted the 10,000 Deutschmark at the time as prize money. And 20 years later, I thought I should research who were those people. And that was a CIA front organization, because that's how they recruit people who obviously are good in analyzing geopolitical situations and countries. So I've actually met a CIA extraordinary rendition team. You remember when in Afghanistan, those poor fellows were abducted and taken for torture in Guantanamo and in other countries. I've met one of those teams. They didn't tell me exactly where they were coming from, but later I understood exactly what they were doing. And, you know, the top guy of them was a nice guy, except that his job was really one of the most rotten things one could do. So in life, you inevitably, like I said, if you go through a loophole in the fence, you will have bruises left and right. It's not all easy. And in a normal career, inevitably you will meet people who are on the wrong side of truth or morale or history. Yeah, that's part of life.
We got one of our listeners right now, my buddy Austin Linney, who I'm co-authoring a book with him right now. He just commented, "This is the coolest guy I have ever met. Why are we not friends?" What's up, Austin? Real quick, one more time. So I'm thinking, since you referenced how, again, information is moving and changing, and who knows from a censorship perspective where we'll be here in the near future. My hope and my optimism comes from the world of blockchain and decentralization. I know there eventually will be technology that will figure out how to centralize decentralization, but it's looking good right now. I'm thinking probably the best way to stay plugged into #TheTruth would be to follow you on Twitter, just to stay connected to a source, again, like you. You guys can follow me too. I'm hanging out with people like Kolja as often as possible. But again, it's Spori Sport on Twitter, correct?
Correct. Adam, thank you very much for advertising me. As people will see on my Twitter account or elsewhere, I'm not, monetizing anything on the internet, so I'm not a big voice. I'm just myself. Basically, I used to research for myself all the time, and I'm happy to give my knowledge or any advice to people who like to hear it. And I'm a non-mainstream voice, and will certainly always stay one, because what I'm saying is not what the system wants to hear. And some people even think that the COVID-1984 regime is a reaction to so many people awakening in the past to the real truth out there and what's really going on. So the lockdown is really a panic reaction of those powers to be. Could be, gives us a bit of hope. So keep fighting it in your everyday lives, wherever you are. Fight this particular transition, which I call the flu d'etat. It's a great word I found in the internet. So it's a coup d'etat using a flu.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the final place I want to drive some traffic here, because guys, again, Kolja and I wouldn't know each other if it weren't for the amazing country of Liberland, which is, again, talk about places in the world that have this ray of hope that we're talking about. Liberland is a great place. You can go to Liberland.org to learn more. I also happen to host the Liberland show, so if you want to check out our podcast, Kolja was episode 9, I believe. And then we've referenced him a lot here too. So I want to give a shout out to two of our friends. One, Doug Casey. You guys can go to internationalman.com, someone I've looked up to tremendously throughout the years. And then Jeff Berwick is really like, he was his information was the portal to like a lot of where I'm at now and where I work, like where I actually work, meeting Kolja, like the list goes on. So dollarvigilante.com. Go to dollarvigilante.com to get some great information there as well. And he's the one who I heard you talking about how there's a little bit of a panic right now maybe coming from that group that we referenced very lightly there. He was one of the first people I heard say it. Now I'm hearing you say it again too, which is awesome. So Kolja, any closing remarks for our listeners, any wisdom, again, from someone who's been everywhere, been to every country, and not only that, been to every danger zone. What's your golden nugget of advice for our listeners as we make our way into this next decade?
I want to combine this with a compliment to you, Adam. Your energy, your positive energy of connecting people, bringing us all together on this platform is exactly what the good guys out there need. We need to communicate with each other. We need to keep up our morale. We need to be aware that there's not only TV programmed zombies out there, but a lot of people who have understood what's going wrong. We might not have a good solution yet, but by communicating and being connected through networks like yourselves and Liberland and Anacapulco, the Dollar Vigilante, Doug Casey, all the Austrian economists, many others, I think we're doing the best we can under the circumstances. And thank you, Adam, for having me on your program today.
Dr. Dangerzone, thank you for coming on the show. Guys, we've had some great interviews here. And, it might be the euphoria of the moment, but man, this has been, I really think we are unlocking some new levels of amazing, this is not the right word, amazingness, awesomeness on Dream Chasers. So thank you one more time, Dr. Dangerzone, Kolja Spori. It's been a complete honor having you on the show.
Thank you, Adam. All the best to you and all the listeners.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Dream Chasers, interviews with the future. We'll catch you in the next episode. Remember, in all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level. Thank you once again for investing your most valuable resource with us here today, your time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please drop a 5-star rating and a review below. Take a screenshot of it and send it over to nextlevel@carswell.io. We have a present for you. We really appreciate you guys leaving those reviews because it really helps with the overall SEO and visibility of the show and allows us to continue to bring on high quality guests. So once again, thank you. And remember, take it to the next level.